All right, so I'm happy to see you, everyone. Welcome to Confront.AI meetup number 2, Parenting in the Age of AI. Woohoo! Applause. That's the second meetup of Confront.AI. I'm very happy to be your host tonight. And we're going to have the panel. It's going to take something like 45 minutes, and then we will have 2 talks. Shortly about Confront.AI, we grow together in the knowledge of artificial intelligence technologies, all in the field. We are both for developers and for people, non-technical people. We try to have a range of subjects on each of our meetings, and you're going to see it. The last talk by Bartek will be about coding. The second talk, maybe I'll show the slide actually. So first, the agenda is that we start now, and at 6:45, so in 5 minutes, we are going to have the discussion panel. After the discussion panel, 2 talks. The first one by Aleksandra Maciejewicz. She's here. And applause for Aleksandra. She's here. And Bartek will be a little bit later. And pizza and networking at 8:30 p.m. until 9:30. So 1 hour of networking. I think it's going to be fun enough. We are the founders and organizers. Me, Filip Wieczyński, and Ahmad Piraiee. They are not here now, but they will join us later. And so about the panel. So the person who's going to conduct the panel is Joanna Andryszczak-Lewandowska. And yeah, and I think I'm going to welcome the panelists already. So can I please ask Dariusz Piotrowski to join us here? And a proper intro will do, I think, Joanna, because she knows most about the panelists. And there will be also Rick Shapa. And the third panelist who is actually in replacement, but it's still, I think, a good decision because I have some background in education. I was a teacher for 4 years, and I did some. It's just me, yeah. As a replacement. Okay, so all right. And later we go to the keynotes. So I think we can start the panel. Jana, should I say something more? I think everything is for now good. All right. So let's start the panel. And here we go.
Thank you. Thank you for the intro, for the invitation. Welcome everybody at the Parenting in the Age of AI. I was asked to conduct this panel like a week ago, and only because I'm a human-to-human evangelist, and I'm an evangelist because Derek told me that this is a fun job to do, to be an evangelist. And I'm not a tech person, but I've been living with one for 30 years. And this is my handicap, that I know how to talk to tech people. I've been raised by one. And I am a huge fan of neurobiology. And this is why I decided to be here to ask the questions, because I know that it's impossible for the machine to raise children. And this is why I have 3 fathers in front of me, and I'm really curious about what they are going to say to convince me that it might be possible, not might be possible. We'll see. Rick, how would you introduce yourself to all of us? Who are you?
Okay. Hello. So I would call myself a technologist. In the sense, I've done a lot of things. I used to be an engineer at Google, and I've recently rediscovered coding. So I guess I'm still a programmer. For the last few years, I've been hanging around the VC and startup scene. So I've been doing technical due diligences. I am a venture partner at Venture Partners. I've done some investment, and which is one thing that is pertinent to this particular panel is that, yes, I am a father. My son is 9 years old.
Thank you. Piotr, who are you?
Yeah, from this perspective, I'm also a technologist. I'm running a software house. However, I was a programmer for 10 years. I worked as a programmer, and I had some opportunities also to learn how to use AI in practice. However, I have also an educational background because I studied education at a PhD studies. I was trying to write a thesis for 5 years at Warsaw University at the Faculty of Education, and I wanted to really to know more about children, how they think, how they discover the world, and how maybe to make their life easier also with technology. And also what might be important for the panel. I have 2 sons. Alexander is 13 and Leoś is 5 years old.
Thank you. And Darek, who are you?
I will start that I'm probably the only one in this room who remember that in Poland was no internet. I was still starting my career in late 80s, early 90s, building internet in the research and academic network, which still exists in a different role. But I should start with my children. So I have a son, he's 20, almost 21, and a daughter, 17. She just returned from the nice trip across Atlantic Ocean from Jamaica to Szczecin, almost 2 months, without the phone, cell phone, internet, and everything. So interesting for 17 years old for our discussion. And basically, the whole my life, I'm working for except this NASC for American companies. So I have experience from the Cisco, Microsoft, and now Dell Technologies. And I saw a couple of cycles of technology through this 35 years. And I think that now I will already start. We are at the inflection point as a society, as a human race, because what's happening with AI. So let's open like that.
Okay, so if you already have the mic, what's going on? Should we be afraid if we would give our children to be raised by the AI?
Yeah,
right
I was attending several panels in the last few months, and I would not answer should we afraid of not, because this debate is happening every day now, and even the deep scientists for AI saying that they are not able to keep up the pace for what's happening in 1 week. I'm not saying that the 6 months, just 1 week. They are not able to keep up what's going on around. So it's very hard to estimate and judge this one. I'm in between, because I'm still believing that the information technology and all the previous tools, that even if that was used for bad, like the cybercrime, etc., there was some limits and some control and still some human influence. Now, as I said, we are at the inflection point that even yesterday, I don't know if you're following up, yesterday, all the designers, the people from OpenAI, Microsoft, even Google, all the guys, they said and they urge the governments that AI, if misused, could be so dangerous like a nuclear weapon and pandemics for the human race. It's not my word, you may find it, it's from yesterday. I'm not even referring to this letter, let's postpone the training the AI for 6 months, which Elon Musk and others wrote down. And I don't want to put into this tone only because I see a lot of positive things in terms of the Copilot and co-working and everything like that. Yet, the people who are developing this, they are now admitting that they don't know what's happening. So if they saying that, so who else or us can debate it, right? Because I'm curious. So that's why I really appreciate this invitation, being with you, because I also count on some discussion with the audience, because honestly, I don't have a clear answer for your question.
should we allow AI to raise our children and grandchildren? Piotr, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that definitely we have no actually choice, in the meaning that AI as a co-parent is going to help us sooner or later. For now, when it gives us ideas, when we ask it, I don't know, when we ask GPT-4, what kind of entertainment I can provide to a 5-year-old children, it gives us ideas, right? It gives us answers to certain problems or to certain questions that they ask in a much easier way that we can do it just by our own intelligence sometimes. So I think that large language models, for example, as conversation support or as idea support or as some kind of creative support can help us. However, we need to know and prepare that there will be much stronger tools for that, for recognizing children needs, or like guides for parents, or support in various multiple layer problems that normally human minds cannot. I mean, individual minds. I don't say about a collective mind that we represented here, but an individual mind is just weaker. We don't have so much knowledge about possible diseases, possible impacts of external factors that we don't know about. So in this case, some kind of AI support can be very, very helpful.
One contradictory point. Humans are lazy. We are extremely lazy. And what problem would that be to, instead of hearing the same question, why is it like that? And looking up for the answer in the chat for the fifth time for the same question and following up, why wouldn't it be easier to give this device to the child and say, go ahead, ask the machine, I don't know the answers. We are lazy. It's tempting.
Okay, so my question to you would be, okay, so what is the difference between a child just Googling something and you telling the child what you have just Googled? In a sense, you have just become sort of an interface for a machine, but the content is still not generated by you, it was generated by Google. And I would say that, well, AI is a pretty new thing. So we don't know yet how it's going to influence parenting. But I would say that algorithms have been raising our children for a few years already. So if you think about all the kids who are hooked on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, well, less on Facebook because that's for old people now. Well, the algorithm has been raising them already. Now, the real question is, what kind of algorithm do we want to take part in raising our children? And in a way, I would say that I would take ChatGPT over the TikTok recommendation algorithm on any given day. Yeah, and so speaking about how AI is gonna influence something is where something can be parenting or psychotherapy or marriage or family is kind of interesting because everything is gonna be affected. So recently I kind of stopped following the news as much as I used to because I have this feeling that they're kind of less relevant than they used to be. What do I mean by that? So in my opinion, what is happening right now with AI is essentially like another industrial revolution. In a sense, during the Industrial Revolution, so some work that used to be done only by biological machines, so humans and animals, suddenly was possible to be performed by a machine made of steel, which scales slightly better. In a sense, it's easier to make more machines than to breed more animals or something like that. What is happening now is similar in the sense that there's more work that's going to be done by machines, but here the work is going to be intellectual. And the same way the Industrial Revolution opened a lot of interesting avenues and some less interesting ones. Like, for example, World War I would not be able to happen in a pre-industrial society. Well, the same is happening with AI right now. Now, I think that it doesn't make sense to debate if we should use AI to help us raise our children, because I believe that the genie is already out of the bottle. In the sense, this is happening, this is going to be happening, and it makes sense in the sense the way I guess people who came to this panel are interested in AI. I've been using AI a lot, right? So why would they expect that our children wouldn't do that?
Fair point, but I would refer to the first thing you said about what is the difference between parent asking the same question and giving the same answers, and ChatGPT doing the same thing. The difference is that the machine would keep on answering, and there is and the parent there would be a point when the parents would say, "I don't know. You have to figure it out for yourself." And this is the way we are teaching our children how to make up the world for their own, not by giving them all the answers, but restraining them from giving the answers, just allowing them to look up for them. So isn't it, again, making us too lazy, using this interface, using this language model, using this machine?
So, in my experience using an AI model to make interesting work or productive work or whatever, it is not a passive experience. In the sense, I tend to think a lot about the prompts that I'm giving and how it's going to affect the final output and so on. And I guess, it's kind of, so you can use a phone to help you raise your children. And what I mean by that is, for example, in the old days, if a kid wanted to go somewhere, then the parent just wouldn't know where the kid is. And that was okay. Everyone seemed to be quite comfortable with that. Well, now that's not the case. Now we want to know where kids are at all times. So I can check it with, Find My on iOS. And yeah, it kind of depends. It's a tool, right? So it depends on how you are going to be using it. And I would say that, laziness is almost, it very seldom helps with doing almost anything that you do. So if you're a lazy parent and then you use AI in a lazy way, well, that's probably gonna get commensurate effects compared with someone who's not lazy and who's not lazy at parenting.
The problem with our brains is that they do everything to preserve energy, so they are making us lazy. I'm wondering if Piotr or Darek have any ideas about how not to be lazy and how not to overuse in the simplest things, which is the most tempting.
We were in this situation many times in human history. For example, there is this story when the inventor of writing came to the king and said, "Look, every idea now you can write down, and you don't have to remember it, and it will help you for later generations." And he said, "No, absolutely not. I'm not going to accept this because people will start to be lazy. They'll stop to use their memory. They won't remember as short speeches as 1 hour. That's terrible. What's going to happen to humans in the future? They will have slow attention span, and and it
Yes.
happened. It happened, and we're here. We're still alive. Maybe we use our energy to a more beneficial way. Maybe not. But I understand. I fully understand what you mean. It's maybe it takes over too much of our intelligence when we use it like
How
this.
to use it wisely?
Well, I think that always adding something from yourself to the prompt to have the time for reflection is a kind of security check before you go on. But I know the temptation is very strong, and possibly we're not going to make it. So yeah, we're going to be more stupid. Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Darek?
I was listening carefully. I think that we deserve some classification, what we're talking about. So first of all, I heard the word algorithms and I'm fully in. If you ask me about the improvement in my car, that this algorithm helping me to avoid the crash and all of the other ones, go on, go on. This is just the algorithm we get used to live for a long time and let them develop like hell. Then we have probably the reason for being here, which is the ChatGPT and the followers now, which is the statistical language model, large-scale statistical language models, which are actually still something which we're debating in terms of parenting. My first part of what I was talking about is my deep concern about the other parts of AI, which is a deep learning, neural network, and etc. etc. There's several blocks. The ChatGPT is just one of them. One of them. And so let's put apart this scary, how this will be used AI and this deep learning, the other things. Let's leave the algorithm. Let's focus on the ChatGPT, which is today probably the closest for our children. That's probably the case. Here, I don't have a clear answer because for me, we are today not at the debating, is it another tool, good, bad, and how we use it? Because up to this moment, we had rather passive tools. What I mean by that? Okay, we got the internet connection, we start sending email, that was better email, then we had the mobile phones with the screen, touch screen. With ChatGPT, there is something more now, because we don't know when the ChatGPT is giving you the false answer. We don't know. And the simple test all of us probably, or most of us will be doing, just write my bio, right? Write my CV and what do you know about me? And that will be perfectly good article, it will be nicely written even in English, but the facts will be missing. You might do this test. And a couple of people did. So the problem with the children is how we teach them to distinguish what is true is not what is not true using such tool. And you mentioned the TikTok and the other social media and the impact for the young generation, which is, I believe it's more negative than positive. And we can have a separate debate on this one. I still prefer Trzepak than spending 15 hours a day with a mobile phone. And I'm really glad that my daughter spent these 2 months crossing Atlantic in a classic style on the big ship instead of spending this on the virtual, let's say, metaverse trip. I don't want it. I don't want it. Basically don't want it, right? And it's hard to convince me that it's equal, really. But it's another debate. So back to the parenting. It's nothing new, but just education. The same way, like we said a couple of years ago, if you are just blindly accepting all the conditions with any application or your mobile on your PC, it's not good because you may be trapped. Your data might be misused, etc. etc. The same now with all these tools. We need to teach our children from the very low level, what is it? That this is statistical algorithm, linguistic model. I know that this term for the young children is too much, of course, but try to explain. So we need to educate ourselves. The problem is, which I indicated at the beginning, it's happening too fast. We are not following up. We are from the IT, are not following this enough. So I would say that, and if you quote me somewhere, I know it's recorded, but one of the first time in my life, I believe that we need to put some limitation. I don't want to use the word the regulation because this is like everybody has shocked immediately, because then we see the government, all these regulatory bodies, and we are against. We all probably. But some level of regulation is needed. Without this, there is no way. Like internet was created, we have the bodies who giving the names, they distributed the IP addresses, etc., etc. The same has to happen with the AI because this is like a revolution, you already said. Sorry, I'm talking too long.
Okay. But 2 things that I heard. Teach our children how to reflect. teach our children how to develop critical thinking. This is not even our educational system doing right now. We don't need to debate on AI. Our system is not doing it right now. I'm teaching leadership, how to reflect. Old people, okay? How to reflect and how to think critically. How to do it without being lazy with this AI. How can we use it? Can it help in reflection, in critical thinking, in creativity? Can it help so that it doesn't damage us?
Okay, so I read this research paper. That was a few weeks ago, but it feels like it was a long time ago. So they did something really interesting. So they took some questions and answers from patients that were answered by doctors. And they did the following experiment. So essentially, they took the original answers that the doctors had written and an answer that was written by ChatGPT 3.5. So not the good model, but the model that kind of sucks. And then they took a panel of human experts, actual doctors, to assess the answers of the AI and the doctors. And it turned out that the human assessors were assessing the GPT answers higher both on factuality and knowledge and empathy towards the patient. So, in a lot of these debates, there is this tacit assumption that humans are actually awesome, that they tend to be not very lazy, and so on and so on. But I would say that the baseline, so this kind of discussion puts the baseline a bit higher than it actually is. So, yeah, it's possible that in many cases AI is going to be able to educate our children better than we are going to be able to do that. Some of the examples where this is quite salient is, for example, stuff like biases and so on. So every one of us has their own biases. ChatGPT also has its biases. The difference between us and ChatGPT is that we can assess the biases of ChatGPT quantitatively. So that means that we actually can figure out what are the biases, and then we can counteract them, etc., etc. So, yeah. Yeah, maybe my level of belief in humans is not as high as it should be, but there we are. So this paper actually kind of seems to corroborate this pessimistic view of human nature.
I wanted to add to refer to that question you asked, how to teach critical thinking. So and reflection. And a fun fact is that 10 years ago, I was a teacher at a primary school, and I was giving during my ethics lessons, I was also giving tutorials on critical thinking. So it's not that critical thinking is absolutely absent from schools. It works somehow. There are some programs for that, and they try to assess different points of view on not only on morality and any actually practical decisions, to evaluate them somehow and to understand what are the human biases, how can we reason to make sure that our reasoning is correct, and so on. Oh, even Wojtek is here, my student. So I'm happy you're here. So it's one way maybe to focus more on how we can teach to think critically, logically, in a way that is more resistant to bias or more conscious of their bias. And the second thing is that we were looking at the dangers of AI that are pretty obvious, even if the creators are aware of that. So we can see that it's a very dangerous weapon. However, we didn't mention the positive yet. And the positive is, for example, that we have a very big chance now in education to have personalized education for everyone. And this is something incredible because every student can have individual tasks given from AI with particular targets for their development and understanding their strongest side, developing them, and leading in a way that their education could benefit the most. Because that's the biggest problem. When I was a teacher, I couldn't individualize because even if you have 10 people in a class, it's not very possible to give the same material to everyone and to develop them at the same pace equally, because people develop in many different ways, and they always have different kind of interests. They always have different pace, different everything. So it's in general, it's very interesting that in case of individual apps that can teach directly people, they can give much better output in education in terms of success of their development.
What if AI will try to hack us? And I will be playing devil's advocate here all the time. Sorry. That's my role.
I would say that other people are trying to hack us all the time. So, I was a kid in the 90s, and I used to go to a Polish public school in the 90s. And I remember there was quite a lot of what I call now propaganda and so on, right? And again, here there was absolutely no control over, the kind of background ideas that were getting pushed into kids' heads. Here, as parents, we actually have, I would say a lot more control. But, we've been kind of talking about, should we or how it's going to happen? I want to share some examples of, how I've been using ChatGPT in my parenting. I was debating it with my wife and actually with myself about should I give access to ChatGPT to my son, and I wasn't really sure because part of my thinking was that with ChatGPT there is a lot of things that I can do really easily that would require a lot of thinking beforehand. Kind of like, if you didn't have a calculator, you needed to learn actually how to do long division, etc. And I feel kind of a better person because I know how to do a long division. But then I thought, actually, I tend to use a calculator if I cannot calculate it really quickly in my head. And I've been doing it for a really long time now. And I still feel kind of okay. So maybe I should trust my son a little bit more in that regard. And second, I have this feeling that for our kids, there is no escape from AI. In the sense, AI right now is like super primitive. And it's really, we are seeing all the potential in it, but it's quite far from what it's going to be. And for them, that's going to be their life. So I thought, it's out of the bottle. The earlier he starts using it, the better. And, so I gave him access to ChatGPT 4 because, I'm a good parent. I don't want my son to use the older model. And I was actually kind of surprised the way he was using the model. So we established some ground rules. So first of all, I don't want him to be using ChatGPT to generate any text that he's going to be assessed on the linguistic level. In the sense, if he's writing a story or something like that for school, then he should write it by himself. On the other hand, if it comes to brainstorming ideas for his stories, that's okay. Another thing, if he needs some text for some other activities where the text is not going to be assessed, that's also going to be fine. And he did something quite interesting recently. So the end of the school year is coming, and they want to have stage a play for the parents. And his teacher proposed a script, but my son didn't quite like the script. He thought that it's kind of it's okay, but it's not like super interesting. So his teacher told him, "Okay, Risha, you can." His name is also Richard, like me. Risha, you can write your own script, and then we're gonna assess it. And then my son wrote 3 different scripts using ChatGPT, and then the class could vote on, well, first which script they're going to do, and second they could also give some feedback. And introducing that feedback into the text was not such a big problem because it's just a matter of prompting it the right way. Yeah, and that's kind of how he's been using it. I tend to check his history with ChatGPT from time to time, and it's mostly things like that, or asking. Actually, he's been asking ChatGPT for inspiration. So, for example, if he wants to think about, I don't know, some crazy machine and so on, then he's going to ask, okay, something about this machine and so on and so on. And then he's going to ask ChatGPT to ask more questions so that he can, flesh the idea slightly better.
But isn't it what Derek... Oh.
He's 9.
Right. Isn't it what Derek told, that we should have some ground rules, limitations, something that would give us boundaries, how to allow children for using AI? This is what you are doing.
Yeah. So the boundaries are important. And also, I wanted him to see how GPT fails. Because I think that if you have such an experience... Okay, so the biggest danger with tools like ChatGPT is that you start believing that they are, that they know, that they're omniscient. Well, then you're going to have a bad time. So I asked him, I know that it fails at some things. At that point, it was failing at math. So we did some examples at how it was failing at math. I also did the experiment of kind of cajoling ChatGPT to give my biography. I'm not notable enough to, for it to give an answer right away. You need to kind of convince it to do it, and of course it was totally wrong. So I was excited about the tool myself, but I also wanted to show my son, okay, this is just a tool and it fails in kind of predictable ways, and you should learn to think about the ways it's gonna fail so that you don't run into them.
So is it like we parents need to be smarter in order to show our children that the AI is something that fails, something that it's not right, something that we need to be critical about? Is it like this? This is the right way to parent with the AI in the pocket?
Well, it is, but I would say that's not a very interesting answer in the sense, well, of course, if you're a parent, if you have a healthy dose of critical thinking, you're going to be a better parent. If you are less lazy, yes, you're going to be a better parent, and so on, right? I would say that, yes, you need to show your kids how to use tools in a smart way, but that applies both to ChatGPT, on your phone, on social media, on your car, for example.
Piotr, Darek, would you refer to that? Because we've been talking...
I really like making these ground rules. I really appreciate this. And I think that this is probably a kind of the path. Again, I think that ChatGPT and similar tools could be very helpful. I think rather more like in a STEAM subject, which is more science, mathematics, physics, and all of this, because it's much more quantifiable for us. If you think that ChatGPT will be teaching ethics or philosophy, I would say teaching not, but looking for the data, looking for the knowledge, yes. And by the way, original idea of Microsoft investing in OpenAI was to enhance Bing to compete with Google. Don't forget about this, right? So if you use now extension of the Bing and ChatGPT within this as the extension of your search, it's perfect. I was just jumping in the new discipline and I want to acquire some initial knowledge. And normally I know that with the classic queries and hundreds of pages, which good, which bad, I would probably spend 5 days. And I absorbed this knowledge in single hours because it was filtered, it was well presented, and that was good. So for this perspective, I think our children as an extension of looking for the facts, sometimes inspiration in some areas, maybe. I have a problem with the more soft, the more humanistic, teaching Polish or any other language. And my wife, she's a teacher in the Polish school, teaching Polish language. And honestly, you may now create a nice essay at any level, because if you prompt wisely, you will get pretty decent note. But how to verify? The chat GPT second instance might recognize or not, rather not. It was created by them. So then it's a copyright. All this system we get used in the since years, it's not working any longer at this scale. But then the teacher is just sitting the class in the room and saying, made it here without the tools. And this is the real level. And this is easy to find out if they absorb this knowledge of writing or not. But then it's a real question, and the children start to asking, why? If ChatGPT will be with me all my life, then I will be creating all the time the decent essays or writing. Or, with your example about the calculator, why I need to teach why I need to absorb so much knowledge in the mathematics if to the level which I need it in my life, I will always have my phone with ChatGPT with the correct answer. And that's fundamental question we need to answer our children. And I don't have this answer now and today. I'm glad that my children already 17 and 20, because with 5 and 7 it's much worse now, because this question is valid. It's valid. And by the way, the last remark. Why I don't like it, this approach that everybody will be using the same. Through the whole history of humanity, we have this Gauss, the curve, that we have this most brilliant people, the average, and some people, they didn't make it. And that was pretty crisp all the time. Now with this tool, not with the printing and the previous ones, we are making this like everybody is almost equal. You don't need this education, because you may always ask about everything today, ChatGPT. But if it will be developed so quick, try to imagine today ChatGPT-like version 10. And we are just jumped from 3 to 4 in a couple of months. And I'm coming from the industry that I know that the capacity of computing power, storing the data, it's infinite. We can really double, triple, and multiply this. And that's how ChatGPT is learning so fast. You have this example. So the real question is how to explain the children that they need to learn anything.
How to make them being self-motivated to learn. How to
self-motivated, or that's another angle of self-motivated, or parents, or forced, or whatever. I don't know. But in the past, we have not this question, because your father told you or your mother told you that, hey, if you will be not learning, you will be not having a better job, you will be not getting better salaries, and it was easy to explain. Today, I could be as equal as the guy who previously not spent even 2 years in a school, because he has a ChatGPT and he's giving same answer.
equal society? Everyone is equal? Is this more equal?
More equal. And maybe just as a short reference from the perspective of a programmer, I can see that seniority is more required than junior skills at the level of architecture, and to understand if you want to deliver an app that solves some problem, you need to have experience with that. You can't ask actually GPT for out if you want to understand what kind of how to solve the problems for a very certain system. It's still needs a lot of programmer support, and actually the skill of using tools, which is very deep and difficult. However, that's I like to do this dangerous games of guessing the future. ChatGPT 10 would be the active tool, as you said. It's not going to be passive, it's going to be the active tool. So you say, ChatGPT, please earn me $1,000. Okay, give me your electronic signature. Here you go. All right, this is $1,000. I'll earn it for you. Thank you very much. Can you tell me something more about it? Oh yeah, you have several agreements, but don't worry about them. They're already solved, and that's everything worked out fine.
Say goodbye to your kidney.
I said this because we there's where our limitations go in, right? Because we want to tell the tool or the people who create the tool put some boundaries, right? They want to understand what is important for us and what is absolutely wrong and what we shouldn't do. For example, we should not earn money on human trafficking or some other unethical in other unethical ways. We can see a difference between 1,000 zlotys earned on hazard and 1,000 zlotys earned on, for example, giving education to people, and it's different, right? It has a different value for us. So we give such boundaries, and we possibly this current situation gives us a very big opportunity to understand what actually is what actually are the boundaries. Again, to remind, and what actually makes us different from this digital intelligence that works for us, and where is our input? Our input is when we say, this is important, I want to achieve this, I want to get that problem solved for some reason, maybe a deeper reason, but there is always a reason, our intention to get something, right?
But you're talking about teaching the ChatGPT, the AI, ethics. Make them more ethical.
Or maybe first children.
Okay, which ethics would you choose?
There is no particular ethics to be chosen. That's the biggest problem, right? Because we need to have these tools of understanding them and trying to figure out the best solution.
If we are to set the boundaries, would we be setting the boundaries by the amount of people that are living in the world speaking certain languages or having certain religious convictions, or
maybe they got understood as well, or or other. I think
to agree on boundaries for the whole world.
Help me, please.
Okay, to the rescue. So actually, no. So actually, the good people at Anthropic, that's another AI lab that was founded by people who left OpenAI because they felt it had become closed AI. And they also have a model called Claude, which is, I would say it's better than Google Bard, but worse than ChatGPT-4. So they had a really interesting idea for alignment. So if you take a large language model and you just train it on data, then it's going to be kind of vicious. If you ask it, for example, in which country is Crimea, it's going to say, of course, Russia or something of the sort. I've done this experiment with one of the Facebook models. And, in order to get alignment, you need to have human feedback. So if people are essentially saying, yes, this is a good reply, or no, this is a horrible reply, it's in Ukraine. And that takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort to create such, such data set. So what the people at Anthropic did is that they prepared some questions for the model to answer. They allowed the model to answer it, and then they took the model and told it, okay, Claude, try to make these answers more ethical. So they actually were optimizing for helpful and harmless, which seems to be the gold standard for for what we want from an AI model. And it turns out that it ends up with pretty great results. However, of course, the rules were they called it constitutional AI. It's a pretty good idea in the sense it works for other applications. So they didn't provide a lot of rules about what it means to be ethical. They kind of allowed their model to figure it out from the data. And the model did actually quite all right. I would say that those rules are there, and they're kind of implicit rules of what we as humanity think, or the part of humanity that created the data, and so on and so on. So yeah, I think I actually have quite high hopes about how AI can learn ethics, in the sense that I've done some philosophical discussions with ChatGPT. I was actually really impressed, in the sense it was much better than at STEM topics. And I want to refer to one thing that Darek said, which was really interesting, about teachers who are worried that, oh, now the kids won't be writing any essays because they will use the model and we won't be able to tell. So my question there is, okay, so we've all seen, how ChatGPT writes an essay without a lot of input from the user. It's essentially bunches of platitudes. That, like, very wordy platitudes that get kind of, regurgitating whatever kind of is the pattern matching for, for the topic. So if, as teachers, we are giving the kids the sort of essays that ChatGPT is able to write in such a way that they're going to receive a passing grade, I think that as society we're failing our children.
Well, I think that the teachers are not just, I love this part of conversation. The way the topic the teacher is giving to the children, I think it's in a good range. It didn't change a lot in the last years before and now with ChatGPT. I even go further because this is the real example from the school, from the fifth class in the primary school. And there was a child, and this was, let's say, average, normal grade around 3, or something lower even often. And suddenly, in Polish, the essay, which was free to pick the 2 books and the characters, and just to have a problematic topic, it was perfect essay, stylistic, punctuation. Everything was perfect, except the book which was used, which was much, much higher, not 5th grade, definitely. And it was like 2, 3, obviously my wife, because it was in her class, she said, and she immediately, she knew that it's not this child, not even his parents reading this, that because they know this children since some time already. And it was like 2 cross-checking questions. So who is the main character in this first book? No, there was some king, actually not the king, etc. It was like a couple of cross-questions, and that was obviously, are you sure you wrote down this? Or, the mom helped me. Okay, I will call your mom. Oh, no, it wasn't me, right? So, in this way, I think that there is a danger because this chat already is able to do a lot of things that we are not even dreaming. And I agree with the discussion about the philosophical grounds that sometimes I've been surprised debating religion, the main religion of this world, and comparing them to each other. I did this half of the night, and it was like, it was out of. And we have many examples now that this ChatGPT today is much, much above the average of population, passing the exams on the university levels with the good score. And by the way, we are crossing another frontier, because previously it was simple IQ. Chess, Go, you know all of these examples. Right? Then we said, oh, is it conscious or not conscious? Now ChatGPT is passing the consciousness test better than the people. You know that we have this test like someone is after the accident or psychological one. ChatGPT is passing this one better than probably average in this room. Now the last frontier is emotional frontier. Feeling emotion, and you said about the empathy, someone said already. So, and then within the discussion, we may have, like, let's say now on the remote end will be the people who will be debating with us. And one day you will be not able to distinct if it's you, me, you, or it's ChatGPT in such discussion. So we are at this level. And again, I'm not telling this to scare you. I'm just saying that this is something we need to realize. You're probably reading also in terms of creativity, all this even movies now, the whole movies, if you properly prompting this, and you will get the character description and all the flow, the music, the paintings, we're reading this, the amount of provocation, which is in any segment of our life, that suddenly someone is saying, oh, it wasn't me, it was ChatGPT doing, or AI was doing this. We are now, as a human, we are stopping to this thing. Is it real, or is this created by AI? So again, I see a lot of potential in these tools, even in education our children. I don't want to be just like this Cassandra of this meeting and just but we need to be aware. But this is our role. We as a vendors of IT, that's our role, not only to present nice nice slides or marketing demos and saying everything is perfect. We need to be aware. If we are aware, we will be better using this for us and then for our children, because that's the sequence. I will be worrying if one day your 5 or 7 years old children will come to you and will do something which you will be not able to explain. Behind would be just ChatGPT, not the real knowledge of your children, because that would be scary. We need to distinct this, right? So, anybody?
We need to be finishing up, so just last couple of words, but just in a second, I just would like to refer to one thing you said, that we are just about to cross the line of the emotional AI. It's not gonna happen, because for the emotional part, we need non-verbal communication, and this is something this tool, I hope, will not... Please, please. Please. Okay.
No, the way the AI today recognize everything from the tone of the voice. Well, wait. From the tone of the voice, from the eyes, from even the temperature of the skin could be measured, but vice versa. Now you have the humanoid models which are really behaving that you will. If that would be the, let's say, a little bit foggy transmission and no one tells you that it's a human or not human, you would probably not recognize. And I'm not telling about this faking movies or what's happening now on the internet, that every big person is faked 1,000 times already, right?
For the good news, have I heard correctly that if we are wise humans, we use the tools in a wise way? This is what this summary for this discussion is. Let's be wise.
Okay, so I would like to kind of end it up on a brighter tone. So one of the things that I was slightly worried about when ChatGPT came out was, what is going to happen with spam? And I mean, the scams, as I said, the Nigerian prince and so on. And I decided, for the sake of maybe writing a blog post to create the perfect Nigerian prince email. The one that I would even fall for, and so on. And I went to work. So, I had a story, I had a harass, and there was a good explanation why the anonymous stranger would need to send money first to them. It all made sense. And I thought, well, actually, what will ChatGPT say about this email? And I put it in a separate session, and it said, this looks like a scam. So, there's a lot of problems that AI is gonna create, but a lot of those problems are also gonna be slightly easier to solve with AI. So, and I was really happy about my idea and so on. I thought I was so original, but it turns out that Rocket Lawyer actually allows you to do this thing that if you get a spam email in your inbox, they're going to reach out, they're going to reply to that email and start having a very long conversation with the spammer to kind of, use their resources, use their energy. So, it's, in a way, I would say that because scammers and spammers already had the benefit of scale, in the sense it's very easy to send 1 million emails if you are a scammer. It's harder for every individual that gets that email to to do something about it. I think that now the balance of power is going to be tipped slightly in our direction.
Thanks. Thank you for this hope. Thank you. Piotr, any last words before we hand up to the questions from the audience?
Yeah, let's go to the questions.
Okay. Is anyone okay? I'll be running with.
Hello. Is it working? Okay. My name is Chris. I would like to give a certain question about whether the problems that we see with the AI are actually our own problems and not the AI problems. And I'll ask a question. Perhaps it's the AI that should regulate humans and not the other way around. So there are these assumptions that we have about the reality, about how the world should work, or what the AI should think, what the correct kind answers should be. But perhaps it's returning answers that we perceive as cruel or unkind or impolite, because we actually have wrong answers, and the AI has answers that, well, may not always be correct, but perhaps they don't have the biases that we do, and which is why we perceive them as bad, as wrong, as unacceptable. And there is this question. There was this regulation of AI, well, I shouldn't call it regulation. It was modified to not give certain types of knowledge, to not return certain types of dangerous knowledge. And, well, is it really a dangerous knowledge? Is it a knowledge that's bad to have? Perhaps knowledge about creating weapons should be available to everyone. Perhaps it's our wrong assumption, our irrational fear, our fear for the fall of established order that makes us afraid of giving everyone this knowledge. And there is the question about the loss of jobs. Perhaps it's our assumption that is wrong, that these jobs should exist and like humans should be the ones to do them. Why? Perhaps it's our bias in this case. And one last example, this example with children using the AI tools to avoid learning all of this stuff. Well, there is such thing as curiosity, natural human curiosity to learn. But then there is our educational system, which perhaps is not suited for enriching our children in a way that's optimal to them. Perhaps they shouldn't have to learn all of this stuff. Perhaps they should be fine learning, going really far in one direction and not really that far in others. So all of this is the example of how the AI breaks our assumptions. And I think that this is one of the reasons for the fear-mongering around the AI and how, of course, it's used to have these ideas of regulating it. So I would like you to touch upon these topics of our assumptions versus the AI.
Okay, that's a really interesting question, if a bit long, but I'll try to answer it. So a few things. I think that there are some things that we kind of know that are bad ideas and that people tend to have those ideas. Like, for example, the stuff with weapons, etc. I think it's the kind thing to do to kind of put more barriers in front of those things. Kind of like, people in general, people in some situations should have access to guns, but we don't want to have guns everywhere because we end up in with this, like in a situation like in Texas, for example, right? And the US, where there's a lot of shootings, etc. So I would say that some guardrails are very, very necessary. But at the same time, I kind of agree that the biggest danger is not, overusing AI, but kind of not using it enough. And what do I mean by that? So let's say that we decide, okay, AI is too dangerous. We want to put a moratorium on any research and so on, and everyone follows. Well, probably not. Probably the people whom we would like to be doing research on AI are going to follow suit, and they're not going to be doing that research. But the people about whom we know that they're going to use AI for really bad things, they're going to be keeping at it. So essentially, if we introduce regulation that's going to significantly slow down legal AI development, well, that means that we are going to give a big head start for all the scammers, all the bad people, essentially. And we are in an arms race. So, the way I said, like scammers are going to be using ChatGPT, and they're going to be doing interactive scams. So, like this thing when someone steals someone's identity and then reaches out to friends and says, hey, I need $100, please send them to me, or my phone is broken, etc. Well, of course, AI is going to be used for that. And I think the only way we can kind of save ourselves from a lot of trouble is using AI to counteract that sort of things.
First of all, the good thing is, and I like that all your question was like perhaps, and that's right, because we are not now in a phase of AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. We're not yet here, because if we will be there, then your question will be really solid and valid, because it will be like a god, right? Super artificial intelligence, which has a much bigger capacity than we do. And then the question, who should teach whom in what, will be valid. It's not yet. It's not yet. We are not at this phase, at least in my humble opinion. Now, still, we have an influence on what's going on because we are feeding by data. These algorithms, all these neural networks, everything was happening. And the type of data, the way we're feeding the data, is also shaping the outcome. Still, artificial intelligence is not, well, actually, okay, I hold my horses because we already at the edge that artificial intelligence creates the new things and it's again reusing it for something new again. So this is creating another problem, what is from our original data, and it's also creating the problem how much trash we have now in internet, because the estimations are horrible. All this created by AI documents. So back what you said, I think that maybe this question will arise in some future, because it's like meeting the aliens, and then we don't know if they have a better ethics, philosophy, mathematics, whatever, and which one is better and who should teach whom, right? So it's a little bit like that, right? So valid questions. I think it's too early to answer that. I'm not so brave to say that artificial intelligence has already more knowledge than us, and we should look as a guide, and that one day instead of organization of all nations, we will have the super AI who will tell us how to live on this planet Earth. That would be scary for me again.
More possibly multiple super AIs that are, having their...
I have a question about some more positive, optimistic, inspiring. Yeah, okay, is it on? I have a question about more optimistic and positive, inspiring stories from your lives about how you used ChatGPT or any other LLM with parenting and with children. I know that there were some stories, and Rick, I know that you have amazing story with talking to Chat about your kid's language that he invented and stuff like that. So I'm just curious, can you tell us some more stories to, to have more uplifting?
Yeah, this one is good with this language.
Okay, so my son is he's quite a particular kid, and one of his hobbies is inventing languages. And when he started it was, I don't know, 7, it was first grade. His languages were really simple, so he was kind of substituting some letters for another, kind of in a Caesar cipher. But then he started having more elaborate languages, and Well, actually, I showed him some YouTube channels about linguistics, and that's what started this Cambrian explosion of languages in my family. So initially, his languages were kind of easy to grok, in the sense they had, well, kind of the structure of an Indo-European language. But at some point, and of course he wanted me and my wife to learn those languages and use phrases and understand, and he would check us if we are actually listening, etc., etc. Yeah, he's quite persistent that way. But, you know, with his newest language, Qwerty, we ran into some barriers. In the sense, his design goal was to make a language that would be as foreign for an Indo-European speaker as possible. And, you know, it started with all the phonetics because it had lots of clicking sounds and so on. So, you know, at some point I would find my son kind of making b, b. And I was worrying, oh my God, he's having a stroke or something like that. No, he was just, you know, like figuring out some new sound for his language, and he wanted to be really sure how he's articulating it, etc., etc. So the phonetics of Qwerty are kind of weird. But, you know, the real problem starts with grammar because it's like really alien. So you know, the verb is at the beginning and so on. It's really unusual. And he wanted me to learn something about Qwerty. Oh, of course, it had long and short vowels. You know, all the jazz, everything that you could find in an article about weird linguistic features, Qwerty had it. And I decided that this is my limit. In the sense, maybe I'm going to be a bad father, but no, I'm not learning Qwerty. And it's an invented language, and, you know, I don't have enough space in my brain. But I will admit, I was feeling kind of guilty about it. So I thought, well, what can I do? Well, maybe we can teach ChatGPT to speak Qwerty. And, well, he was quite enthusiastic about the idea. So what he did is that he wrote some sentences in Qwerty and some so sentences and a translation to Polish. He also wrote a glossary. So what we did is we put it into ChatGPT and asked, hey, ChatGPT, tell me what can you tell me about this language? And then ChatGPT told us it was actually wrong in a few places, so we gave some more feedback to ChatGPT. Okay, now here you're wrong about this and that and so on. Then we asked ChatGPT, hey ChatGPT, can you please write a prompt that would allow you, if you were starting fresh, to understand this language better? So we got this prompt, we put it again into a fresh session of ChatGPT. It was working slightly better, but not ideally. And then we repeated this process a few times. So we never got it to the point to speak grammatical Qwerty. Apparently, it is a very challenging language. But it was pretty decent at translating from Qwerty to English. And, you know, this sounds like a lot of work. And there was some work involved in the sense that he needed to write down his language. It took him, I don't know, a few hours, but all the rest kind of, also asked ChatGPT to generate some example sentences that he would need to translate into Qwerty. Because, you know, sometimes we're running out of inspiration. And that was nice because it took him quite some time. Again, it's a difficult language. But in the end, you know, ChatGPT was able to translate from Qwerty to English in a half-decent way. We did it all in one Saturday afternoon, with a break for some food. So it was like maybe 4 hours or something like that. If we were to do a similar project without AI, well, first of all, it would be probably impossible. If it were possible, it would be unfeasible because it would take some crazy amount of time. And, you know, and this is probably one of the most beautiful things about you know, this new brand of AI, is that it allows you to do things that were, well, so things that were impossible now become difficult. Things that were very difficult become, well, be not trivial, but doable.
Can I ask? Yeah. Okay, so I have two comments / questions. So first of all, just a comment on, because there were mentions about having like basically an equal society because, well, ChatGPT can answer it just like anyone else. So what's the difference between me and anyone else? In my opinion, that's not really valid because, for example, right now, even if you go to Google, there is plenty of information about any single topic. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna become, I don't know, a rocket scientist just because I have access to the actual knowledge that is there. Anyone can go on Google, for example, and get access to this knowledge within seconds, but it doesn't mean that you can actually apply this knowledge. And in my opinion, this is where the difference will happen. I think ChatGPT can accelerate that and make actually getting the knowledge much faster, but I still think that there will be a difference in actually applying that knowledge that is being gotten. So I don't know, what's your opinion on that? And then the second question will be about the alignment problem. Because there were a lot of mention, for example, about maybe we should let the models figure out the morals themselves, or also questions about maybe actually the AI's morals are better than our morals, and maybe it is, but I think it doesn't change the fact that it is still pretty scary because, for example, if we just look at the way that we treated, for example, animals or people or creatures that are just less intelligent than us, even in many cases we harm them or we caused extinction of those animals, even if we didn't have like a big evil plan to kill them. It's just like, oh, we wanted more space, let's destroy the forest and kill the animals, yeah? And maybe it will be in a similar way with the AI, that they don't have a really big evil plan against us. Maybe their morals are better than us, but our morals are not aligned, and that will cause a lot of harm to us. So I don't know, what are your thoughts on those two comments / questions?
Well, I have the microphone, so Elizabeth. So I think that I'm not actually. So I start with the end of the question, in the sense, what if ChatGPT decides to, to bulldoze down the forest to build a bigger mall or something of the sort? I'm actually not worried about that. Well, of course. So the thing is that ChatGPT doesn't have morals. Large language models do not have morals. They do not have emotions. So they can tell us about our morals, and they're pretty great at that. They can tell us about our emotions. So you can take some text, put it into ChatGPT and ask, okay, so what is the emotional state of the person who has written it? And it's going to give you a really great answer. But the model itself doesn't have any emotions. And when I say emotions, I mean, this most primitive drive that drive us to do things, to live, to reproduce, etc., etc. It just doesn't have it. So I feel that, assuming that we stay with the models as they are right now, they do not have the incentives to harm us because, well, they don't have any incentives. Now, I would like to add one caveat because, in many science fiction stories, it turns out that, well, actually, if you want to cross some level of intelligence, then you need to add some sort of emotions or some sort of capability for suffering. Well, if we end up in that world, then well, I will need to do a lot of thinking to figure that out.
I need to bounce back because I will not expand this, but just make a search and read about what Chaos GPT is doing now. And then you will find a lot of answers without the emotions. Why without the emotions? Because if you today even give the simple task in even Copernic Center to the AI, and you will tell, give me the full number of, give me the all digits of number P. And it's busy forever. And this is a task, and it's pretty intelligent. It's executing. The same in the Chaos GPT. There is the one goal for this full engine which was created, and is still working, a couple of months already, destroy the humanity. The plan is crazy. What's going on in there, it's crazy. It's creating internal small instances of the like GPT pilots searching because they find out that the data from ChatGPT which was fed, it's not enough for these tasks. So they switch to Twitter. Because the best way to destroy humanity is to find our things we talk about each other. So again, it shouldn't be scary, but it is, because you ask this question, right? The second part about this potential, what we're doing for the planet and what chat could do for us. Actually, I answer in this first part because I just said. Again, there's a lot of questions which are unanswered now. And I know that we have a session about AI Act after us. So that will be extremely interesting, because I'm not so convinced that the politicians will fix it. Yes, but there is one but. Luckily, our civilization went a couple of cycles when we also thought that we are on the edge, right? We fought successfully with most of the pandemia across the many hundreds, thousands of years. We managed to really find a way to not be constantly threatened by the nuclear weapons. We may debate now if this is sustainable or not, but still we find the way a little bit about this one, right? Another one, the ozone gap, how we call it? Dziura ozonowa. Dziura ozonowa, wiem o co. So ozone hole, sorry, not the gap. Shit. It's late, sorry for that. So I think that like 30 years ago, there was like 300 substances used by most of the countries, which was creating this hole. Now we have just several in the whole globe, in most of the countries, which was the real threat for the whole humanity. And the hole is shrinking. Of course, we have a global warming for different other reasons, etc. But as a humanity, we have the ways to sometimes, from time to time, regulate something which is potentially dangerous for us. So that is my hope.
Okay, thank you. The question is if I'm referring to Chris, if it is not our need, psychological need, because you told about emotions of AI. If it is not our psychological need to recognize emotions in AI, if they already do or write moral things about morality, for example. If it is not like we are growing the, let's say, bunch of AI psychopaths without any emotions, just doing.
I will answer it as a human and specialist in emotions. Unfortunately, everyone has emotions, and we are either capable of managing them, or we forget how to be humans. And hopefully, majority, 99% is really decent people who can regulate their emotions. So I'm not afraid of this part. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, guys, thank you very much. We extended too much, a little bit. So I'm giving the mic to Agnieszka, and thank you very much. Thank you, Darek. Thank you, Piotr. Thank you, Alexandra. Darek, Piotr, and Ryszard. Thank you for your time being with us. Thank you.